The U.S. president has previously claimed American troops were on a path out of Afghanistan, but it seems the realities on the ground have changed his mind.
I decided that we will maintain our current posture of 9,800 troops through the end of this year. The specific trajectory of the 2016 drawdown will be established later this year.
And that will cost a hefty sum. The support for the Afghan military alone will cost around $4 billion this year and roughly the same amount for 2016.
I would also like to thank the American taxpayer for his and her hard-earned dollars that have enabled us.
Our Washington correspondent Guy Nature-Chikan now reporting on the American withdrawal.
President Obama has pushed the decision on the pace of withdrawal beyond 2015. He said by the end of 2016, though, U.S. forces will definitely be out. Only embassy security will remain. But again, once we approach 2016, that plan may change. It has happened before. America's Afghanistan deadlines have a tendency of changing. There's now a security agreement in place between the U.S. and Afghanistan, which provides American forces with immunity from Afghan law. It took months, if not years, to negotiate. There's now a government in Afghanistan that seems very favorable to Washington. Given all this, the U.S. may stay in Afghanistan for much longer. President Obama said he wants all troops out by the end of his presidency. But he may now decide to put that decision on the shoulders of the next president. He's facing a lot of pressure from some military officials who say now is not the right time to leave Afghanistan. He's facing pressure from some policymakers and lawmakers who say we've put so much money into this country, why should we just pick up and leave? So President Obama may be trying to push it as far down the road as possible until it becomes not his decision to make. In Washington, I'm Ganesh Chekyan, RT.
And our In the Now program discussed America's ongoing problems in Afghanistan with Washington-based journalist and former UN spokesman for Iraq, Saeed Erekat.
America's funding is expected to maintain a 352,000-strong security force through the end of 2017. According to Obama's administration officials, that could mean around $4 billion this year, nearly the same amount next year. So how much cash is it going to take? You say the Taliban could resurge there.
Well, absolutely. I think the Taliban are already resurging. I mean, you know, the countryside is almost completely controlled by the Taliban. There are parts of Kabul that are controlled by the Taliban, certainly at night after the fall of darkness. I mean, this is really an endless effort. If you look at the cost, as was projected by Harvard University a year or so ago, on the cost of both wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, we're looking into something like $6 trillion. I mean, no small change. You could fix the entire infrastructure in the United States that is really falling apart, roads, bridges, hospitals, and so on. So it is really in for a long haul. It will cost a lot more money. And basically, the country has not really made so many gains.
Thanks for joining us here on RT International today. Still ahead for you in this program, the spat between the authorities and the Ukrainian tycoon Igor Kolomoisky reaching a new high. He quits as regional governor. Plus, the Japanese island of Okinawa takes on the U.S. military presence there, while Tokyo sides with Washington. 10 minutes past the hour here in the Russian capital, an American lawyer claims he was responsible for a racially motivated campaign in Austin, Texas. Last week, several businesses in the city discovered provocative stickers on their windows. The signs said exclusively for white people and displayed a quota for the number of colored customers. The text also claimed support from the city's authorities, but this was strongly denied by officials. The man behind the stunt, Adam Raposa, says he wanted to highlight the plight of minorities in Austin. It's been the fastest growing city in America, but the black population has declined. And Mr. Raposa thinks it's a result of racist economic policies, so he decided to fight fire with fire.
The very idea that rich people are negatively impacting poor people, many of whom happens to be black or minority, that idea right there, to some people, suggests that it's an affront to America as a whole. Suggesting that means that you don't love America. a lot of people have difficulty with the idea that the system, the way that it operates, the way that it's designed, negatively impacts significant chunks of the population. To just think that way is hateful to many Americans, which to me is interesting because the technology, I believe, can help people stop attaching high levels of significance and just start thinking. Because if you're unable to even consider a proposition because it gets you so angry, well, then you've really lost control of your mind at that point.
It's RT International. A wave of anti-austerity demonstrations hitting Canada. The protests, though, being met with a tough police response. In Montreal, police used tear gas on crowds of students protesting against sweeping education cuts. Protesters battled with police who reportedly used rubber bullets and flashbangs, and several arrests were reported, though dozens were arrested during a demonstration in Quebec City. The students were marching against government cuts, which they believe will impact public sector workers. The police said the rally was illegal as no itinerary had been provided. It's the latest in a string of protests over the past few days against the provisional government's austerity plan. We're following it closely at RT.com. All right, coming up here on the program, the Franken foods you won't notice in a supermarket. Genetically modified apples that don't go brown are deemed safe by U.S. authorities. Yet customers raise the alarm since they can't tell if they're buying GM foods or not. That story is coming up after the break.